Welcome in, everyone, or rather, a very specific welcome to you, our listener, to this custom-tailored deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
If you're joining us today, you already know this isn't going to be some traditional lecture.
Right, definitely not a lecture.
Think of this as an exploration designed specifically for your highly curious mind.
Hmm.
We're taking a stack of really fascinating sources and extracting the absolute best nuggets of knowledge just for you.
Because, we know you value your time. You want to get straight to the core of the issue without getting bogged down, but you still want the nuance. You want to see how all these disparate pieces actually fit together to create a much bigger picture.
And today, the pieces we're putting together are, frankly, mind-blowing. We are decoding the science behind Marvel's Merc with a mouth.
Deadpool.
Deadpool himself, yeah. To do this, we've pulled together an incredible stack of materials for you to explore.
We've got a lot to cover.
We really do. We're looking at comic book lore. We've got brilliant film analyses from outlets like Dark Skies and EduLab, and we're cross-referencing all of that with cutting-edge medical research on oncology and regenerative biology.
It's a phenomenal blend of disciplines, really. Our mission today is to separate the Hollywood fiction from the real-world scientific fact.
Which is always the fun part.
It is. We want to figure out just how much of Deadpool's regenerative immortality is pure fantasy and how much of it is actually serving as a legitimate blueprint for the future of human medicine.
Because comic books often do that.
Oh, absolutely. Time and time again, they act as a wonderful mirror for our deepest scientific aspirations.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we really have to start at the very beginning with the agonizing origin of Wade Wilson.
The foundation of it all.
Right. And we won't spend too much time on the basic lore because you likely already know the setup. Before he was the wisecracking guy in the red suit, Wade Wilson was an ex-Special Forces operative who gets handed a devastating diagnosis.
Terminal cancer.
Terminal cancer, yeah. Desperate for a cure, he accepts a very shady offer from a clandestine organization running the Weapon X program.
The exact same folks who gave Wolverine his adamantium skeleton.
The very same. And the method they use on Roe v. Wade is incredibly brutal.
It's horrible. The experiments are led by Ajax, also known as Francis Freeman, and his associate Angel Dust. And their stated goal in the film is stress-induced gene activation.
Right. They aren't just giving him a magic pill.
No, not at all. The hypothesis is that by pushing a human body to the absolute brink of death through extreme, sustained trauma, they can force dormant mutant genes to awaken as a supreme survival mechanism.
And the movie depicts this trauma as literal torture.
It's hard to watch.
It is. They show Roe v. Wade being subjected to repeated near-drowning and prolonged oxygen deprivation in this specially designed sealed chamber.
Yeah, the vacuum tube thing.
Exactly. And the cinematic narrative pushes the idea that this agonizing lack of oxygen is what finally triggers his mutation, granting him his healing factor.
Yeah.
But that it also leaves him horribly, permanently disfigured.
He essentially looks like living scar tissue.
Right, like a topographic map of Utah, as they say. But here is where we have to step in and look at the actual science.
We do.
Does oxygen deprivation cause that kind of permanent full-body scarring?
It absolutely does not. This is where we have to firmly debunk the Hollywood science.
So the movie got it wrong.
Very wrong. If we look at the research, specifically insights from Dr. Craig Hirsch, an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School, the movie's logic completely falls apart.
Okay, how so?
Well, extreme oxygen deprivation causes something called cyanosis.
Wait, so just turning blue, like when you swim in a cold pool for way too long?
A similar mechanism, yes, but taken to the extreme, is turns the lips, the fingertips, and eventually the entire skin blue because the blood physically lacks oxygen.
Right.
But it is entirely temporary. Once blood oxygen levels are restored and the person can breathe again, the skin returns to its normal color.
It just bounces back.
Exactly. Oxygen deprivation simply does not cause the kind of permanent, horrific scarring or cellular degradation that we see on Wade Wilson's body.
So if the torture chamber didn't cause the pizza face look, as Wade so colorfully puts it, what actually caused the scars?
What's fascinating here is that the real cause of his disfigurement is deeply biological, and it ties directly into how his powers actually work.
Okay, I'm listening.
The scarring comes from the chaotic, violent interaction between his newly awakened healing factor and his terminal cancer.
Because he still has the cancer.
He does. When the Weapon X program activated his mutant genes, it didn't just give his healthy cells the ability to regenerate at superhuman speeds.
Oh, wow.
It gave his cancer cells that exact same ability.
This leads us perfectly into the great paradox of Deadpool. He is essentially walking around with super cancer and hyper healing all at once.
A biological tug of war happening inside his body every single second of every day.
Right. And we all know he can survive insane amounts of damage in the comics and movies, decapitations, severed limbs, incineration,
Taking a nuclear bomb to the face.
or having his head completely pulverized by the Hulk. He just grows it all back.
He does.
But that healing factor is inextricably, permanently linked to the cancer that was supposed to kill him.
To understand how this works mechanically, we need to look at the science of cell division. In the human body, cell division is meticulously regulated by two main types of genes.
Okay.
You have oncogenes, and you have tumor suppressor genes.
I love the analogy for this because it makes it so easy to visualize.
The car analogy.
Yeah, the car analogy.
Wow.
I like to think of oncogenes as the gas pedal for cell division. They tell the cells to multiply, grow, and divide.
Right.
On the flip side, you have the tumor suppressor genes. Those are the brakes. They tell the cells to slow down, stop dividing, or even tell severely damaged cells to die off so they don't cause harm to the rest of the body.
That is a perfect way to look at it. In a normal, healthy body, the gas pedal and the brakes work together to keep everything in perfect equilibrium.
A balanced system.
Exactly. You get a cut on your arm, the gas pedal presses down just enough to create new skin cells to heal the wound, and then the brakes engage immediately so you don't grow a giant, unnecessary mass of extra skin.
So cancer is when that balance breaks.
Cancer happens when the gas pedal gets physically stuck. The oncogenes mutate and multiply out of control, pulling healthy cells into giant, malignant tumors.
And the brakes.
The brakes, the tumor suppressor genes, completely fail to stop them.
Hold on, though. If his body is using cancer to grow a new hand, why doesn't he just grow a useless giant meatball of a tumor instead of functional fingers?
That is the brilliance of his specific mutation. In Deadpool's body, this broken system is weaponized into a superpower.
Okay, walk me through it. Let's say he gets his hand cut off.
Sure, his body uses the hypergrowth of the cancer that stuck gas pedal to literally rebuild bone, muscle, and tissue at lightning speed.
So the tumor growth rate is building the hand.
It essentially uses the tumorous growth rate to rapidly form a new hand. But then, right before that new hand turns into a massive useless tumor, his enhanced tumor suppressor genes slam on the brakes with incredible force.
Wow. It's a tragic biological trade-off when you really think about it.
Very tragic.
His healing factor doesn't actually cure his cancer at all. It just keeps the cancer in a perpetual, agonizing state of remission and regeneration.
Exactly. His healthy cells regenerate, but so do the malignant tumors.
That constant, rapid cellular turnover, the dying and regenerating of tissue happening simultaneously, is what leaves his skin looking like a giant full-body scar.
And it doesn't just affect his skin or his limbs.
It goes deeper.
It does. This constant cycle of dying and regenerating cells is happening inside his brain, too.
Right, the psychosis.
Yes.
Yeah.
His brain cells are continually being destroyed by the cancer and immediately rebuilt by his healing factor, which actually explains so much about his character on a narrative level.
It really does. It's the biological root of his erratic psychosis, his mental instability, and his constant fourth-wall-breaking hallucinations.
His brain architecture is literally in a constant state of flux.
Which introduces a really dark irony to his whole existence. Because his healing factor was specifically engineered by his body to combat this incredibly aggressive cancer, they are locked in a permanent stalemate.
They are.
So if a doctor were to ever somehow miraculously cure Wade Wilson of his cancer, his healing factor wouldn't know to shut off.
Right. Without the cancer there to continuously destroy cells and keep the healing factor busy rebuilding, his body would continuously overproduce new replacement cells faster than his system could handle.
It would just keep pressing the gas pedal.
He would essentially generate so much excess tissue that the sheer volume of runaway cell growth would kill him.
He's only immortal because he's constantly dying. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. You might think this oncogene and tumor suppressor dance is purely comic book fiction. But out in the real world, right now, there are animals that essentially possess Deadpool's powers.
Nature's own mutants.
Yes, we are talking about literal, real-life creatures.
The most famous example, and the one that regenerative biologists are studying most closely, is the axolotl. It's a type of aquatic salamander native to a very specific region in Mexico.
I always laugh when I see pictures of them because they look like a friendly, smiling Pokemon, complete with these little feathery pink gills.
They do look very cute.
They do.
Yeah.
But biologically, they act like unkillable bioweapons.
The capabilities of the axolotl are truly staggering. If an axolotl loses a limb, it doesn't just form a stump and scar over like a human would.
It just regrows it.
It regrows the entire limb, bone, muscle, nerve, blood vessels, and skin perfectly, with absolutely zero scarring.
That's unbelievable.
And it doesn't stop at just limbs. They can regenerate crushed pieces of their spinal cord, they can regrow their retinas, and they can even regenerate entire chunks of their brain or art.
Chunks of their brain.
Yes. And they can do this dozens, even hundreds of times over their lifespan, and every single time, the replacement part is entirely flawless.
And the research in our sources points out that they achieve this using the exact same oncogene and tumor suppressor relationship we were just talking about with Deadpool, right?
Exactly that mechanism. Their bodies know exactly how to floor the gas pedal to rebuild a severed limb using rapidly dividing cells, and they know exactly when to hit the brakes so it doesn't just become a tumorous mass.
And they aren't the only ones.
No, we also see similar, though slightly less extreme, abilities in the zebrafish, which can seamlessly regenerate severed spinal cords and damaged heart tissue.
So hearing all this, the obvious question for anyone listening is, why can't humans do this?
It's the big question.
If a tiny, smiling Mexican salamander and a fish can perfectly regrow a spinal cord, why is a spinal cord injury in a human permanent? Why are we so fragile?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it comes down to a massive evolutionary trade-off over millions of years. We have to look at the ancestral traits of vertebrates.
Okay.
There are something like 64,000 living species of vertebrates on the planet. Millions of years ago, the capacity for extreme regeneration was likely much more common across the board.
We all probably had it to some degree.
Likely, yes. But as higher vertebrates, like us humans, along with other mammals and birds, evolved from those early ancestors, we faced entirely new selective pressures.
Like adapting to heavily oxygen-rich environments and moving onto land permanently.
Yeah.
And we developed warm-blooded thermogenesis.
Let's break that term down for a moment. Thermogenesis.
Sure.
It means our bodies generate their own internal heat to maintain constant temperature, unlike a cold-blooded salamander. That requires a massive, complex metabolism.
We run hot.
We do. And generating that much energy creates a lot of what's called oxidative stress in our cells, which dramatically increases the likelihood of DNA damage. Furthermore, mammals developed incredibly complex adaptive immune systems to fight off evolving pathogens.
So as our bodies became more complex, hotter, and faster, our risk of cellular mutations skyrocketed.
Precisely. The risk of cancer became a much more immediate threat to the survival of the species than losing a limb.
That makes total sense.
So evolutionary biology made a choice. To lower our overall risk of developing widespread lethal cancer at a young age, we essentially traded away those extreme regenerative traits. We locked down our cellular plasticity.
Cellular plasticity being the ability of a cell to easily change its identity or state, like turning from a specialized muscle cell back into a blank slate to rebuild a limb.
Yes, we traded away that plasticity so our bodies wouldn't constantly be at risk of runaway tumor growth. But we chose stability over regeneration.
And the human heart is the perfect and honestly most ironic example of this trade-off in action.
It really is.
We do have some minor regenerative abilities left. We can heal superficial cuts on our skin, and our liver is famous for being able to regenerate itself even if up to 2/3 of it is removed.
Sure.
But the human heart, it essentially has zero regenerative plasticity.
Adult heart cells, known as cardiomyocytes, simply do not divide.
They just stop.
Once the human heart is fully formed after infancy, the cells are permanently locked in their state. Because those cells don't divide and grow, heart cancer is incredibly rare. It is virtually non-existent.
So the one organ that writers, poets, and musicians are always saying gets broken by love is actually the only organ tough enough to completely reject cancer.
It is a profound irony. But the tragic flip side of that evolutionary coin is that when the heart actually is damaged, say by a myocardial infarction,
A heart attack.
right, a heart attack, the tissue cannot heal itself. Because the cells won't divide to replace the dead tissue, the heart patches the hole with stiff, non-functional scar tissue.
Which is called fibrosis.
Fibrosis, yes. And that permanent scarring, that loss of pumping function, is exactly why heart failure is one of the leading killers of humans globally. We traded the ability to heal the heart for the absolute guarantee that the heart wouldn't get cancer.
It's amazing when you frame it like that. We are fundamentally built down to our DNA, to prioritize avoiding cancer over extreme healing.
We are.
But what if we could rewrite those rules? This brings us to how scientists are trying to bring the fiction of Deadpool into reality, because we aren't just accepting this evolutionary trade-off anymore.
Definitely not.
Researchers are actively trying to hack our biology to give us these regenerative powers.
They are, and it's a rapidly accelerating field. This work is happening across three main pillars of research right now.
Let's go through them.
The first pillar is stem cell therapy and epigenetics. Stem cells, as many know, are essentially the body's raw materials, blank slate cells from which all other cells with specialized functions are generated. But the real breakthrough is in epigenetics.
Break down epigenetics for us, because that's a term that gets thrown around a lot in health circles, but is rarely explained well.
Think of your DNA as the hardware of a computer. It's the fixed code.
Okay, the hardware.
Epigenetics is the software. It's the chemical tags and instructions that tell the hardware what to do, which genes to turn on and which to turn off.
So it's the operating system.
Exactly. Scientists are learning how to rewrite that epigenetic software to use stem cells as a targeted biological repair crew. They are deploying them to treat severe burns by growing new skin, injecting them to repair damaged heart tissue after a heart attack, and even attempting to bridge severed spinal cords by telling the stem cells to become new neurons.
So if we can't naturally regrow a limb, we are hacking the software to force the body to do it anyway.
That's the goal.
That brings us to the second pillar, CRISPR and gene editing.
Yes, and this is where it really sounds like science fiction. CRISPR-Cas9 is essentially a biological cheat code.
A cheat code, I like that.
It allows scientists to literally go into the DNA sequence and precisely cut, tweak, or replace specific genes.
So how does that apply to Wolverine or Deadpool-style healing?
Researchers aren't just trying to cut out genetic diseases. They are looking at ways to temporarily manipulate those gas and brake pedals we talked about.
The oncogenes and tumor suppressors.
Right. For instance, they are researching how to use CRISPR to temporarily suppress the p53 gene. The p53 gene is the human body's primary tumor suppressor, the main brake pedal.
Okay, so they turn off the brakes.
The theory is, if you can safely suppress p53 right at the site of a severe wound just long enough to allow rapid, explosive cellular healing, and then use CRISPR to turn the p53 gene back on before it turns into cancer.
You've essentially replicated Deadpool's healing factor in a controlled clinical environment.
Precisely.
That is wild. You're giving the body a 48-hour window of super healing, then pulling the plug before the cancer takes hold.
It's a delicate balance, but yes.
And the third pillar is tissue engineering, which is basically saying if we can't force the body to regenerate a limb on its own, we might just build one in a lab from scratch.
Exactly. Researchers are using advanced biological scaffolding to essentially 3D print custom lab-grown organs, skin, and cartilage.
3D printing organs.
They use a process called decellularization. For example, they can take a pig heart, wash away all the pig cells with a special detergent until only the collagen scaffold, the ghost heart, remains.
A ghost heart. That sounds spooky.
It does, but it's incredible science. Then they seed that scaffold with the patient's own human stem cells. The goal is to eventually create perfectly matched replacement parts that the human body won't reject because it's built from their own cells.
But the holy grail of all this research, the thing that feels most like Wade Wilson's Weapon X treatment, is the research into a specific gene called Lin28A. What makes this gene so special?
Lin28A is a fascinating target for scientists. This is a gene that is highly active in embryonic development.
Before we're born.
Right. It's what allows an embryo to grow from a cluster of cells into a complex human being so quickly. But, like many regenerative mechanisms, it largely shuts down and goes dormant as we become adults.
We lose access to it.
We do. Researchers studying tissue regeneration in mice discovered that if they can figure out how to safely reactivate the Lin28A gene in adult mammals, it drastically enhances tissue repair.
Meaning, theoretically, if you lost a hand, turning on Lin28A at the stump could revert those mature, specialized arm cells back to an embryonic state where they say, oh, we need to grow a hand now.
And they just rebuild it.
They rebuild the bone, muscle, and skin from scratch, exactly like the axolotl does.
Which is incredible to think about, but this raises an important question. Will we ever see an army of actual Deadpools running around?
That's what everyone wants to know.
And the realistic scientific answer is highly unlikely. There are profound biological limitations in the human body, specifically regarding the central nervous system and the sheer complexity of our biology, that are incredibly difficult, perhaps impossible to fully overcome.
So no surviving a nuclear blast.
No, we will likely never be able to regrow a severed head or survive a nuclear blast.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about the biology of a comic book character?
This is a fair question.
It means that while you shouldn't expect to magically regrow a severed arm tomorrow, the science inspired by concepts like Deadpool's healing factor is actively saving lives today.
That's the real takeaway here.
The exact same biological pathways that make Wade Wilson an immortal comic book character are the pathways researchers at places like Harvard and the Mayo Clinic are targeting right now.
We are talking about the very real possibility of conquering cancer
Reversing heart disease.
and using regenerative medicine to make permanent organ failure a thing of the past. Fiction is acting as the roadmap for reality.
It is a deeply hopeful reality for the future of medicine. But as we wrap up this deep dive, it's worth taking a moment to look at the broader, perhaps darker, philosophical side of extreme regeneration.
The other side of the coin.
Right. Because if we actually solve the riddle of cellular decay and master these three pillars of research, we are ultimately talking about extending human life indefinitely.
We are.
And we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over today. In the comic books, there's a very famous storyline where the villain Thanos literally curses Deadpool with immortality.
Thanos gets involved.
Yes, Thanos. In the comics, Thanos is in love with the physical embodiment of death. And he is so jealous of Deadpool's relationship with her that he curses Wade to never die. He permanently separates Wade from the entity of death.
Which sounds like a reward, but it's not.
No. For Deadpool, his endless life becomes a literal, agonizing curse. He can't escape it.
Now, bring that back to the real world. Think about the medical science we've discussed today. Think about researchers like Aubrey de Grey, a very prominent biomedical gerontologist.
He's a big name in this field.
He is. He passionately argues that regenerative medicine will eventually unlock the secret to indefinite cell renewal by defeating cellular senescence.
Senescence being the process where our cells permanently stop dividing and essentially just age and decay, which is what we traditionally view as biological aging.
Precisely. De Grey and others in his field believe we can systematically repair this cellular damage.
They want to cure aging.
They believe we can cure aging itself, treating it not as an inevitability, but as a biological disease that can be eradicated, creating a form of effective biological immortality for human beings.
So here's the question we want to leave you with. If medical science eventually unlocks the secret to indefinite cell renewal,
If we solve the puzzle.
at what point does outliving your natural lifespan stop being a medical miracle and start becoming a psychological curse?
That's heavy.
If you had the opportunity to biologically regenerate forever, to watch centuries pass, watch eras rise and fall, while you remain physically unchanged, like Deadpool, would you really want to?
It is a profound question about what actually gives a human life its meaning. Does the value, the urgency, and the beauty of our time come directly from the fact that it is limited?
Something for you to ponder long after this deep dive ends. Until next time, keep questioning and stay curious.